Welcome to BookCast FM, bringing books to life, one cast at a time. We're launching into a deep dive today that tackles a really infuriating modern paradox, the existence of entire types of jobs that seem to benefit absolutely no one.
Yeah, we are talking about David Graeber's, well, truly indispensable 2018 book, Bullshit Jobs, a theory. And Graeber didn't just notice that modern work is often frustrating. He really exposed this massive systemic hypocrisy. Millions of people getting paid, often quite well, to do jobs they secretly believe are completely pointless.
That's the stunning core idea, isn't it? Before we unpack the why, maybe we should clarify the definition, because Graeber is very precise here. When he says bullshit job, what exactly does he mean?
Right. He means a paid role that's so unnecessary, so pointless, that the employee themselves believes it serves no real purpose.
And that subjective element, the employee believing it, that's crucial.
Absolutely. And we have to distinguish it straight away from what he calls a shit job. Think cleaning staff, nurses, sanitation workers. These jobs are often hard, maybe low paid, sometimes unpleasant, but they are fundamentally vital to society.
Okay.
Bullshit jobs, on the other hand, they're often quite comfortable, maybe administrative, sometimes highly compensated, but they're spiritually empty.
Right. So if you're trying to spot one, Graeber gives us three key things to look for. First, the employee thinks the work is meaningless. Second, the job only exists because of sort of bureaucratic inertia or social pressures, not real functional demand.
Yeah.
And third, getting rid of the job would make absolutely no noticeable difference to anything. It's that internal knowledge, that feeling of futility that really drives the whole theory.
It is, and he talks about the spiritual violence done to the worker. I mean, humans seem hardwired to want to contribute something, and denying that dignity, even if you get a good salary for it, is just profoundly destructive.
It seems completely counterintuitive, though. We're told capitalism is all about maximizing profit, ruthless efficiency. So how have we ended up creating this world where inefficiency seems, well, almost like the defining feature of so much office life? Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really grasp the scope, Graeber spent years collecting testimonies. People wrote to him in droves after an initial essay he published. And from all that, he developed this really clear, compelling typology, a classification system, if you like.
Okay.
He identified 5 distinct archetypes of meaningless labor. And this shows it isn't just, a few bad managers here and there. It's more like a systemic design flaw.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with that first group he identifies, the flunkies. Who are they?
Flunkies, right. These are jobs that exist primarily to make someone else, usually a boss, a superior, feel important or powerful. It's kind of a modern form of servitude almost, like having attendance.
So like the assistant hired just so the executive can say, have my assistant handle that.
Exactly that. Or maybe the second or third receptionist at a desk in an office where hardly anyone ever visits. Their presence makes the boss look grand.
They're basically human status symbols.
That's a good way to put it. Their function is just to confirm the manager's place in the hierarchy. It reflects managerial ego, not any actual need.
Okay. The second group sounds maybe a bit more aggressive. The goons.
Yes, the goons. These are roles that exist purely because of competition, often aggressive competition. It's like a zero-sum corporate arms race.
Okay, like who?
Well, think about armies of telemarketers or many corporate lawyers fighting endless battles against other corporate lawyers. Lobbyists, maybe some PR specialists. Their whole job is often to gain an advantage for their employer, sometimes at the expense of others or even society as a whole.
So if every company just agreed to fire their goons tomorrow, society might actually be better off.
Probably yes, but the system prevents anyone from disarming first, right? No single company dares to stop employing them if their competitors still do. They feel required for, corporate self-defense or aggression. The value isn't societal, it's purely combative within that system.
Got it. Okay, next up, we have a category I suspect a lot of people might relate to, the duct tapers.
Ah, the duct tapers, yes. These poor souls are the employees constantly fixing problems that are caused by, well, structural inefficiency, bad management, or just fundamentally flawed systems. Systems that really should have been fixed properly ages ago.
Can you give us a really concrete example?
Yeah.
Because that sounds a bit abstract, maybe.
Sure. Think of the specialized IT team that spends half its time manually correcting data messed up by the hugely expensive automated software the company just bought.
Right.
Or the administrator whose main job is basically translating between two incompatible databases because the organization just won't merge them properly. Their job is essentially to patch the leaky ceiling again and again so the executives upstairs never realize the whole roof needs replacing.
Wow. So they're doing essential work, but only because the system itself is fundamentally broken. That's a key distinction.
It really is. And that leads us quite nicely to the next type, the box tickers.
Box tickers. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I can guess this one. All about performative accountability.
Exactly. They create the illusion of useful action, usually through forms, metrics, performance reports, stuff that probably nobody actually reads or uses, but it satisfies some bureaucratic requirement, either internal or external.
Like compliance officers generating endless, maybe redundant documentation.
That's a classic example. Or, say, university administrators producing pages and pages of assessment metrics just to satisfy some central office requirement. Their work simulates activity, it simulates success through bureaucracy. It's all about organizational optics, making it look like things are being done rather than actually delivering results.
And finally, Graeber points the finger at the architects of all this pointlessness,
Mm-hmm.
the taskmasters.
Yes, the taskmasters. These are essentially managers whose primary role is to create or supervise unnecessary work. Often, this is just to justify their own position in the hierarchy, and in doing so, they generate new bullshit jobs for other people to do. They're the bullshit generators, if you like.
Ah, okay. So we've probably all encountered a taskmaster, the manager whose calendar is just wall-to-wall meetings about planning the next meeting.
Precisely. Their goal isn't necessarily productive output. It's about maintaining and maybe expanding their own sphere of authority, their little empire.
Making work for others to do.
Exactly. They tend to expand hierarchies, protect their own status, sometimes by making sure competent people below them don't have too much autonomy. They can be the root cause of a lot of the pointlessness trapping everyone else.
Okay, so we have these 5 types. Now let's talk about the human cost.
Mm-hmm.
Graeber points out these are often well-paid, comfortable, high-status jobs, yet they lead to profound anxiety, guilt, depression. Why is supposed comfort so corrosive?
It's what he calls the suffering paradox. It seems backwards, doesn't it? But Graeber argues that being denied the dignity that comes from meaningful contribution creates a kind of spiritual misery. It seems we are, psychologically, just hardwired for purpose, to feel like we're doing something useful, and to deny that.
Well, he calls it a fundamental violence against the human spirit.
There's a quote from the book that really stuck with me on this, something like, "There is a deep violence being done to the human spirit by the demand that we spend our waking hours pretending to care about things we don't care about." But I have to ask, isn't calling these jobs bullshit inherently judgmental? Are we sure this isn't just, the complaint of comfortable white-collar workers who'd rather be artists or something?
That's a fair point to raise. But Graeber actually flips that idea. He says the judgment isn't coming from him or from outside critics. It's coming from the workers themselves. It's their misery, their feeling of pointlessness that proves the system is wrong, not the worker.
And this self-contempt, this anxiety, it's fueled by intense cognitive dissonance. These workers often have to engage in what he calls performative labor. They must pretend their tasks are essential, meaningful, important.
That constant need to pretend, that hypocrisy,
Yeah.
it must be mentally exhausting. And it fuels that fear of being found out, right?
Yeah.
That your job is a sham. The whole corporate world starts to look like this massive stage play.
And this brings us to what feels like a truly infuriating moral inversion in the system. Think about it. Those who perform genuinely valuable, absolutely necessary labor, the nurses, the teachers, the sanitation crews, the care workers, they're often paid the least.
Yeah.
While those performing, well, arguably meaningless, paper shuffling, and comfortable offices are often rewarded handsomely, it strongly suggests the market, as it currently functions, does not really value actual social usefulness very highly.
It's hard to talk about this psychological toll without wondering, okay, what is the root cause? If these jobs are so corrosive to the human spirit and so inefficient for the companies supposedly obsessed with efficiency, why does capitalism tolerate them, let alone create more of them? This feels like the core mystery.
Yeah, it is. And Graeber argues that the whole efficiency myth just falls apart when you look at power structures instead of just economics. He introduces this really powerful concept, managerial feudalism.
Managerial feudalism. Okay, tell me more.
We tend to assume hierarchies exist to maximize profit or efficiency, but Graeber suggests that often layers and layers of management exist primarily to maintain control and status, just like in feudal times.
Wait, so you're saying bureaucracy isn't just an unfortunate side effect of large organizations,
Right.
but it might actually be the point for those in charge? That kind of changes everything.
It does, doesn't it? Think of it like a medieval court, he suggests. Prestige isn't measured by how much value you produce for the world, but by how many subordinates you command or how big your budget is.
Right. How many people report to you?
Exactly. And this status dynamic justifies continuous bureaucratic expansion, creating more manager roles, more departments, even if it actively hurts the company's actual bottom line or makes things incredibly inefficient. The point becomes control, status, power, not efficiency.
And this connects to maybe a deeper and perhaps more cynical systemic logic, something about the political function of keeping people busy.
Precisely. Graeber argues that bullshit jobs function as a form of social control. The system, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps not, seems to prefer keeping the population busy and dependent on wages. He suggests that a population kept busy, even with meaningless tasks, is potentially easier to control than one that has significant free time.
Free time to do what?
Well, free time to think critically, maybe organize politically, question the hierarchies, demand change. The idea that we're actively prevented from having more leisure time because it could lead to unwelcome political engagement is, well, it's a profound thought.
It really is.
And underpinning all of this, there's this persistent, almost religious attachment to the old Protestant work ethic. You know, that deep-seated cultural belief that labor, any kind of labor, apparently is inherently virtuous and morally necessary. And idleness, or even just leisure, is inherently suspect, maybe even sinful.
So this cultural baggage forces people to cling on to pointless jobs, just to avoid the moral stigma of being seen as lazy or unproductive?
It seems to play a huge role. We've created a civilization where work, just the act of being employed, often feels like an end in itself, regardless of what that work achieves, rather than work being a means to a greater end, like, say, provisioning a healthy, thriving society with the things it actually needs.
Okay, so given this whole diagnosis, what's the way forward? How do we get out of this?
Well, this is where Graeber asks us to engage in a pretty radical thought experiment. He says, imagine if all the flunkies, goons, duct tapers, box tickers, and taskmasters just vanished overnight. Poof, gone.
What happens?
Society's essential functions, food distribution, healthcare, utilities, transport, fixing things, they would likely continue. Maybe even run more smoothly without all the administrative sludge. The real crisis, the chaos, would be largely confined to corporate headquarters, government administrative offices, revealing exactly where the real necessary work isn't being done.
That's a powerful image. So how do we make that leap in reality, or at least move towards it? He advocates strongly for universal basic income, doesn't he? UBI.
Yes, UBI is presented as a key mechanism for liberation here. The core idea is that it would decouple basic survival from the necessity of having a job, any job. When people are guaranteed a basic income to cover their needs, they gain the moral and economic freedom to actually refuse meaningless, soul-destroying jobs.
And that would have knock-on effects.
Huge effects, potentially.
Okay.
It would force employers to either make their jobs genuinely useful and contribute something worthwhile, or they'd have to offer drastically increased pay and better conditions to attract people to do the unpleasant but necessary shit jobs.
Okay.
It would recalibrate value.
It could also free people up to pursue intrinsically valuable activities that the current market just doesn't reward properly, right? Things like care work, art, science, community building, stuff that doesn't easily generate profit but is crucial for a healthy society.
Exactly. So ultimately, Graeber's whole argument builds towards a call to fundamentally redefine what we value, what counts as success. We need to shift our societal focus away from just bureaucratic compliance and quarterly profit margins and towards actual social usefulness, creativity, care, and community contribution.
Which brings us, I think, to the final really provocative thought from this deep dive. The persistence of all these bullshit jobs isn't just an accident or inefficiency. It's maybe the heavy price our society pays for maintaining an illusion of order, for maintaining dependency, and ultimately for maintaining control. The true unspoken secret of the system, Graeber suggests, is that it doesn't actually want people to be truly free.
It's a powerful, sobering analysis, isn't it? About how we collectively waste just enormous amounts of human potential, human creativity, human time, often simply to prop up existing hierarchies and prevent change.
So just to recap the main points we've hit. We've looked at Graeber's crucial definitions of bullshit jobs versus shit jobs. We've explored the 5 archetypes: flunkies, goons, duct tapers, box tickers, and taskmasters. We've touched on the really devastating psychological cost of meaningless work, and we've considered the systemic logic behind it all, this idea of managerial feudalism and social control. It's a truly essential read, I think, for anyone who has ever stared blankly at their computer screen and just thought, what on earth am I actually doing here?
Absolutely. The book is both a really cutting social critique, but also, I think, a powerful manifesto for human dignity. It urges us to demand meaning from our working lives.
So if this deep dive has resonated with you at all, we really do encourage you to explore the full research, the compelling testimonies, everything Graeber lays out. Please consider purchasing David Graeber's Bullshit Jobs, The Theory. You'll find a link right there in the description.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of meaning, work, and, well, maybe freedom.
This has been BookCast FM, bringing books to life one cast at a time.